More 5S progress, beginning with the shoe rack. First off, there are less shoes on here than there were before. I don't know if I mentioned that last time. A bunch of old shoes have been tossed. And I also think as a 5S standard, these $15 Avia shoes that I first started wearing about a year or so ago are going to be good for casual stuff, and then wear work shoes for all work stuff because it's tougher and can take a beating. I'm still having trouble wearing out these $15 shoes. So, right. I don't really need that many pairs of shoes except for, work, so I can always have something to wear. So I tossed out a few pairs last night that have just been sitting and not really going anywhere. The rest I think could be polished up, shined up, but that's another discussion entirely. Now, on with the Geekhouse 5S.
The wacky world of MultimediaJay.
It's the end of the road for the tube monitor. Found an arcade that would part this thing out for the CRT to repair an arcade cabinet with. Otherwise I was going to junk it anyways. There's no real use for these things anymore unless you're a retro gamer who wants the tube experience and things like that. Or, the arcade thing or something like that. But this thing only does 1280 by 1024. It's a 17-inch square screen, and it guzzles 100 watts all by itself. I don't need this anymore. Plus, the last tube monitor that I had went out with a bang when the flyback transformer blew up or something like that. That's usually what happens when televisions go out with a bang. Something involving that high voltage circuit that powers the CRT. The stuff where we have the warning, do not try to fix this thing yourself. Hazardous voltages inside. Oh boy, the heat is messing with me. Anyways, end of the road for this thing. It had a good run. Bought it in 2004 after my monitor blew up. So... definitely almost 15 years, and it's still chugging along. It is still chugging along, and it's time to say goodbye to this thing. So, one last time. Let's give it one last degauss, if degauss even works this soon after turning it on. Woo! Yeah, I remember I used to do that. We used to call it the hippie button on the screen. And one last dose of flicker vision. It is done. Just having it do one last hurrah before it left the Geekhouse for the final time. And the tube monitor is gone, and the look on the cow's face says it all. It is totally siesta weather, 90 degrees out, but it's not too humid, so I'm trading humidity for heat, because this place was humid from yesterday, and it was starting to heat up, so I figured, it's gotta get hot anyways. Let's trade jungle heat for dry heat, and dry the house out. I said I was going to get a fatter table. Here's the fatter table that I was looking at. I just hope it's not too fat. The idea is to have the keyboard in the front and then kind of shelf space-ish in the back for anything that's charging and things along those lines. So, and then of course the skinny table can go by the door so I can get some more space for whatever I want to put around where the curtains are. That's all getting cleaned up too eventually. So last go-around I mentioned this horrible old Radio Shack power block with the adapter plugs from back in the day. I forgot to mention a little something that I usually had paired up with it. The DC adapter, as it was called once upon a time, made specifically for giant power blocks. See, there's no ground plug or anything, and it just goes to a standard lamp cord in the end. This used to be in the Radio Shack catalog back in the day. Plug your big blocky things into this, and then there's this safety cover just bolted on, or excuse me, attached, not bolted, to cover up whatever plugs you don't use. So I might use these two later for other blocky power adapters, but these things are so handy. I'm surprised nobody makes anything similar to them nowadays. Of course, there's so many ways to not be affected by power blocks that these things aren't really needed anymore. So, it's a different world, but I still have the signs of the old ways around, so to speak. There we go, that's progress, at the very least. Looks like the fatter table is already doing what I thought it was going to do. The extra space in the back can be used for an out-of-the-way place for stuff that's charging. Just gotta go in and clean up some of these wires later on, maybe get some cable ties in on the action. But the fun part is, if you're on the other side, it's a lot harder to see what's going on back there, and that stuff's not on the floor anymore, where it can collect dust and be an overall mess. So we got spots to charge rechargeable batteries with the slow charger. The fast charger is also on the other side too, if I want to quick charge something. Just plop it up over the top, do my charging, put it back. And of course we got the MIDI out, got to get some cables going for that in order to be able to hook the keyboard back up to the computer. I think I'm short on cabling for that. and or at least the cabling that I do have is horrendously outdated, and it's turned yellow and it's ugly. But either way, yeah, so we got the extra camera over here for the camera battery, because the one and only use I have left for my SD camera is to charge the spare battery for the main HD one. And I also have a hookup over here to plug in a shaver. Yeah, I do kind of wing it with an electric when I'm getting ready to go to work, and I have a mirror to take out whatever I miss and stuff. But this is another 5S decision, because I recently upgraded to this one with the thing in the middle and the two foils to replace this one, which had issues with not being able to take out really small stuff until I picked up this Phillips One blade. So these two are now replaced and superseded by this one thing I have a cord for. I don't know what I'm going to do with that other shaver, but I'll keep its cord with it in case I want to charge it back up and use it again. And then, of course, this thing actually can double for cutting my own hair, because you can just buzz around the back, and it's kind of like putting a razor to the back to get the edge really sharp, as opposed to whatever you can do with the hair trimmer these days. Yeah, I'm one of those nerds that tries to cut his own hair, and with two mirrors and stuff like that. About 2 years ago I started trying to do that with mixed results, but hey, you know, I have fast growing hair. If I can stay out of barber chairs, all the better. Well now, since I had to wait for something to go through the laundry, I actually had a chance to edit and upload something, and now I've committed to uploading the thing before calling it a night tonight. So, I found a power strip whose metallic look is a better fit for the shredder and everything over here, so the generic Belkin thing is added here. Eventually that'll be the case with all the power tap type stuff that I have around here. I mean, the whole generic, like, I bought it off the shelf at some hardware store and it looks generic and it's going to turn yellow in 5 years. That sort of stuff is just, nah, I'll pass on that. Here's what I had to wait for to go through the wash. My old throw-over for that table over there from way the heck back in 2006, when I would cover the table up with something to use it for a set. Freshly washed through the laundry, all nice and soft. Smells like fabric softener. Good stuff, good stuff. I decided to go with this, because a lot of the times when I'm working on something over on the table, you'll have little things like screws and stuff that you want to be able to see if you drop them, so dark surface versus metal. Anyways, I suppose if worse comes to worse, I'll find yet another navy blue bed sheet to throw over this to match everything else. The thing with all the extra bed sheets is that those were basically my blue screen material of choice, but other than clearing all this out and draping blue screen material over the double curtains, I don't really have any options here that wouldn't involve adding new holes to the wall, which I'm not interested in doing because this place is in much better shape than the last place I was in, so I don't want to make it any worse. Good stuff. Anyways, this thing over that, to make it fit in a little better with the color theme we've got going on, even if the chair is a ratty 7-year-old office chair with half the leather having scraped off. Speaking of ugly yellowed power strips and surge protectors, blech, recycle bait. Even the generic Belkins are better than this thing. How many years does this thing have on it? Well, enough to start doing that. The chemical reactions are beginning in the plastic. This thing is yellowing. Whatever. There we go. This is already looking better with the black throw-over in place. And I found a black HDMI cable so that we wouldn't have to use this ugly thing anymore. Yes, once upon a time I thought I was smart because I found a value pack of every cable under the sun at Target. They all looked like this and whatnot. It had like, what, 2 HDMIs, a component, a composite, and it was like some value price of like $25 for a bunch of different cables. Rubbish. All of it. This is like HDMI 1.0. I don't even think you can use this with a PlayStation 3 without the screen glitching out. So, yeah, this is done. That is definitely recycling fodder. Speaking of recycling fodder, this looks a little bit better in terms of not being some ugly yellowed piece of junk. So, as far as power to the project area goes, but the 5S standard is that black, blue, and green GE power strip, but those cost a little bit of money, so we gotta buy those gradually to not go spending too much money on them. But for now, this thing avoids the recycling bin one last time. Ugh, I'm not keeping this. It looks better, but that's about it. 100% looks over practicality. This throw is going back in the closet. The big issue, of course, is, yeah, in 2006, I was able to make this table not look like a wooden table with it, but that's the extent of the usefulness of this thing. Basically, the issue with this, as obviously you can probably tell from how it's all bunched up now, is that it has the same shortcomings as a tablecloth. You'll slide your stuff all over the place, and you can't use fuzzy bottom computers, so to speak. The felt on the bottom of this can't be used to slide that over real easily and stuff along those lines. This just doesn't work. It's not going to work considering all the sliding computers around that I do over here, as well as plugging and unplugging and things along those lines. Plus, I actually have the old computer cart that I used to use for the project area back at my old place, which would be more appropriate to this because it's actually made to have a computer on it. I've just been using it as a nightstand in the bedroom the whole time I've been here. Probably not the best use for it. So, at the very minimum, I think I should get rid of this throw and then just go back to a wooden table, even though I'm having problems with the trim getting pulled off by wires going down the side. We'll save that for another day. There we go. Nice little tablecloth trick. Was really handy in getting that throw off of this thing. It's a little ratty, but we can just clean up the wires and redirect them. And I've got some gear to help with that. We just got to figure out how to deploy it. We'll get to that at some other point. But for now, we'll keep some natural wood going. And now, the other reason why I'm keeping a table in the project area instead of bringing the computer cart out here. Some depth. It goes this way. There's plenty of space, so I don't have to move the monitor out of the way to open this thing up and maybe put it on its side and do some work on it or something like that. I mean, this is a nice sturdy table for doing work that requires heavy stuff to lay on its side and, well, get work done. Just gotta figure out what to do about the cables that are always here should probably be managed somehow, and then the cables that are only used ad hoc, like the keyboard, the mouse, things like that. Gotta rig something up. We just plug and play with those things, and then this thing can now spin back around, as it should be able to, because this setup is for troubleshooting things first, exhibition second. If nothing else, this setup would benefit from one of those Allsop monitor shelves to elevate the monitor up a little so that we can have stuff underneath it and gain some space that way. That monitor could probably go a few inches higher and still be perfectly usable in this type of service setup. All things considered, the new entryway, the new setup, what the new main area looks like, as well as what's going on over here, make it feel like things are getting a little bit more organized around here. But I still have a long way to go. Geekhouse 5S is not just going to be a thing for this vacation, but it's going to get one heck of a start this coming week. And I think this is where we can call it with all of this, and we'll just end with the cow. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.
Want to support the wackiness? Visit patreon.com/MultimediaJay.